Good evening. I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and welcome to the September 18, 2019 edition of the Bible, Delight in the Details. We're looking again today at Paul's letter to the Ephesians. We're in chapter 2, and we're going to look at verse 6. And God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms in Christ Jesus. Verse 7. In order that in the coming ages he might show the incomparable riches of his grace, expressed in his kindness to us in Christ Jesus. And then in verse 8, for it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. There's so much in those 3 verses. Those are glorious words. But I want to focus specifically on the tense. Yes, we're talking about the grammar tense of these words. For it says that God has raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't feel raised up yet. And I certainly don't feel like I'm seated up in glory, next to Christ right now. Do you? I'm wondering, did I miss the bus? Interestingly, in the Greek, the tense that is being used here is fascinating. It's kind of a hybrid tense. It identifies something that has happened in the past, but also something that is in the future. It's as if God is saying, this is already a done deal. I was trying to explain this in a way to my Sunday school class, and the best I could do with it is something like this. Let's say you were elected president, okay? And it's November the 4th, and they've counted the ballots. There's no doubt. Nobody's going to question it. Okay, let's say it's just a nice, clean, obvious win. Okay, now, you're not going to take office until January 20th. Okay, so, but you're going to be president. There's no question about that, right? As long as you are alive on January 20th, you are going to take office. It's kind of like that. When we become saved, when God, when we put our faith in God and God saves us, he saves us today, but he thinks about us as we are ultimately going to be. We are already guaranteed to be sitting in glory. In God's mind, because he is the God of all time, he exists throughout all of time, we're already there in some ways. We don't realize it, but we might as well be there because we're going to be there. And, my dad, who many of you know is a Bible scholar, he always tells me that you have to think about, where is this ending? What is going to be the final result of whatever it is that we're doing right now? And when you think of how is it possible that a holy God can have anything to do right now with us, who, even if we're believers, even if we've been saved, even if one day we will be glorified, we don't feel glorified right now, right? And trust me, if you were to ask our spouses, our children, they'd say, no, they are not glorified right now, that's for sure. We are still sinning. How can God have any communion with us right now, given that we are still sinners right now? Forgiven, and yet we still are sinning. It's because when God looks at us, he looks at the end. He looks at where we're going to wind up. And we're going to wind up in the same place and in the same nature as Christ is right now. And that is perfect, glorified, having been sanctified over time, and now in the heavenly places, perfect, without a blemish. That's what God sees even today. Isn't that marvelous? Isn't that glorious? It's kind of like your fiance, who can get a mental picture of what you're going to look like in a few months when you walk down that aisle. And every time he looks at you now, even as you're, sweating to try to get into a better, situation to wear that wedding gown, what does he see? He sees the final product. He sees you already as you're going to be. Isn't that a marvelous thing? I mean, I don't know about you, but that is very exciting to me. That even though I may not feel like I am yet seated in the heavenly places, I am. And when God thinks of me, that's what he sees. He sees the end. He sees the completed masterpiece. He sees the ultimate you. You at your very best. It's such a big thing right now. People say the best version of you. That's what you want to be, the best version of you. Well, that's exactly what God is making you, the best version of you. And when he looks at you today, that is what he already sees. I don't know about you, but that is how I want to be seen. I think that is our best look ever. I'm J. Lenore Bressler. Visit me on the next edition of The Bible Delight in the Details. Have a great night.